Hi everyone. The second video lecture for Chapter 2 is going to focus on the amendment process. So please make sure that you have your notes packet out, record the notes as you watch. If you have questions on anything, please make sure that you draw a question mark next to it or record your question in that right-hand column so we can address it in class tomorrow. Today is all about the amendment process, and we know that to get the Constitution to go into effect as our new system of government, the Constitution needs to be ratified by 9 out of the 13 states. So just a couple notes on the ratification here. All states called and convened special state conventions. Delaware was the first to ratify the Constitution, which they proudly put on their license plates. New Hampshire was the 9th and final state, so it puts the Constitution into force, but they really felt like they needed New York and Virginia's approval here too, because those two states collectively made up 40% of the US population. Even though the Constitution was in force after New Hampshire was the 9th state to ratify, and it wouldn't have mattered the opinions of the other 4, all 13 states will eventually vote to ratify the Constitution, and George Washington was the unanimous first pick by the Electoral College to be president of our first attempt at governance under the Constitution. Now, if we choose to change the Constitution, which in general, with the amendment process, it was the intention of the Founding Fathers that the amendment process would enable the Constitution to change and be a flexible document. The founders, when they created the Constitution, imagined it to be a living document, something that would help to preserve self-government and flexibility for the nation as it would evolve and change. Now, Article 5 lays out the amendment process, the formal ways that we can change that Constitution, but there are informal ways that we'll talk a little bit about as well. Constitutional change, it was very important because the framers felt that the document was unwritten, that generations that came after should have the ability to add on to this imaginary blank space at the end of the document. And creating a living document is difficult. Formally amending the Constitution is very difficult. It's only been done 27 times. But through change and differing interpretations, we can also change the meaning of the Constitution. And we'll talk about some of the informal ways that we have seen the Constitution change that has also given it some flexibility. The formal amendment process, again, very lofty hurdles in order to be able to change and amend the Constitution. High thresholds requiring supermajorities, so not just a simple 51% could ever choose to change the Constitution. There are 2 pathways for proposal and 2 pathways for ratification. So in total, 4 different ways we could see amendments come into play. The most common way that an amendment has been proposed, and all but 1 amendment has been proposed by Congress and ratified by state legislatures, is that an amendment is introduced just like any other bill in Congress. And after that amendment bill is proposed, it needs to receive 2/3 vote in both houses to then be forwarded on to the states. It is also possible to call a national convention called an Article 5 Convention of States, in which 2/3 of the states request that Congress convene an Article 5 Convention of States where states are able to propose the amendments they would like to put up for ratification. They would still require 2/3 of states to say yes to those amendments. The 2 ways that amendments can be ratified would be that 3/4 of state legislatures vote to ratify an amendment, or that states again call these separate state conventions and 3/4 of states must say yes. All but 1 of those amendments has started with that 2/3 vote in the House and ratified by legislatures of 3/4 of the states. The only one that has not followed that process is the 21st Amendment, which was proposed by 2/3 vote in each House and ratified by state conventions. In general, the goal for the amendment process is to make the Constitution more democratic and more egalitarian, which we've seen through the 27 amendments that have been added over time. The first 10 amendments that were added, we call the Bill of Rights. Here's just an infographic showing this process, how we ratify the Constitution, the varying pathways that it can take. Again, Congress proposal, 2/3 vote in each house to ratification by 3/4 of state legislatures has been the most common. One time, state conventions ratifying that amendment proposed by Congress. National state conventions have never been used, but please take a note that this would be a way to add an amendment to the Constitution to change the Constitution by a completely state route without any input by the national government. And here again, step 1, proposal, step 2, ratification. 2/3 in the proposal process, already a high bar, made even higher in step 2 of ratification, in which 3/4 of state legislatures or state conventions would need to vote to ratify. Now, we've only had 27 amendments to the Constitution in 200 plus years, which speaks to how difficult the amendment process is. So most changes to our Constitution have been informal. Consider things like judicial interpretation, things like the ability of judicial review, that the Supreme Court can find the actions of the legislature and executive branches constitutional or not. Nowhere in the Constitution does it explicitly say that, but through interpretation by the Supreme Court in Marbury v. Madison, that has been added to be standard practice. A 2-term president, that was something that George Washington instituted in an informal manner, but was later obviously added as a constitutional amendment, but that at the time was an informal constitutional change. Political practices, the fact that we have a 2-party system that is solidly entrenched in this country, that is not mentioned in the Constitution, but that has become the way we work. Things like the Electoral College and electors following the popular vote in states, even though it's not directly stated in the Constitution. Technology, for instance, the president now being the one in charge of nuclear weapons. Again, not written anywhere in there that that is the president's job, but we interpret the president's role as commander-in-chief to mean they also have the ability to be in charge of our nuclear arsenal. Now, the constitutional debates that were settled in the Constitutional Convention back in 1787 were only some of the debates and compromises that need to be settled. And in fact, there are still constitutional debates that exist today. Questions of representation in the House, how representative the House actually is. The Electoral College, should it be abolished or not? What's the appropriate balance of power between the federal and state governments? Should the government be able to surveil citizens post 9/11? So I want you to pause here and take the time to read 1.7 in your content companion, and then consider this question once you're done reading, jotting down your answer in your note packet. Go ahead and pause here, and then you can resume when you're done. All right, now that you've read a little bit about questions of representation, the Electoral College, I want you to take a look at this political cartoon as just kind of a final wrap up in summary. Jot down your thoughts. What's the message of this cartoon? U.S. election without the Electoral College. How does it relate to some of those constitutional debates we were discussing? You can pause the video here, take a few seconds to think about this, write down your answer. And here we are at the end. So please review your notes. If you had any questions from today's content, please be prepared to ask them at the start of class tomorrow.